The waiting room on Luna Station buzzed with quiet conversation and nervous energy. Captain Lee Hyun sat perfectly straight in his chair, his prosthetic left arm resting naturally on his knee while his 8-year-old daughter Nari swung her legs from the seat beside him. The metal and synthetic materials of his artificial limbs caught the harsh fluorescent light, making small gleaming reflections that drew curious stares from others in the room. Around them, other veterans waited for their assignment hearings. Most were younger men and women who had served in support roles during the Centauri conflict. They whispered excitedly about the prime colony worlds and trade stations that might be offered to them. Terra Nova was opening 3 new agricultural sectors. The Epsilon trade route needed experienced administrators. Even the mining colonies in the asteroid belt offered good retirement packages. Hyun listened to their hopeful chatter, but said nothing. He had been a frontline fighter pilot for 12 years. He had led the squadron that broke through the enemy blockade at New Seoul. His tactical decisions had saved 6 colony ships carrying nearly 1 million civilians. The scars on his face and the prosthetics replacing his lost limbs were proof of what the war had cost him. But that was 3 years ago. Now the bureaucrats saw only a damaged soldier taking up space. Nari pressed closer to her father as more people entered the waiting area. She understood enough to know this meeting would decide where they lived next. Her mother had died in the war when their transport ship was attacked. Since then, it had been just her and her father, moving from one temporary military housing unit to another. The little girl watched the other veterans with sharp eyes. She noticed how they avoided looking directly at her father. When they did glance his way, their expressions showed pity mixed with uncomfortable embarrassment. She had seen those looks many times before. A secretary appeared at the doorway. She was a thin woman with perfect hair and a crisp uniform that had never seen combat. Her voice carried the artificial politeness of someone who dealt with unpleasant duties every day. "Captain Lee Hyun, Admiral Choi will see you now." Hyun stood carefully, his prosthetic leg making a soft mechanical whir as the servos adjusted to his weight. Nari hopped down from her chair and took his real hand. Together, they walked through the doorway into the assignment chamber. The room was designed to intimidate. High ceilings stretched up into shadows, while bright lights focused down on a single chair facing a raised platform. Behind a curved desk sat Admiral Choi Min-ho, flanked by 2 junior officers who shuffled through electronic tablets. The Admiral was a soft man who had spent the war safely on Earth, managing supply chains and writing reports. "Captain Lee," the Admiral said without looking up from his tablet. "Please be seated." Hyun remained standing. Military protocol dictated that he should sit when ordered, but something in the Admiral's tone made him resist. Nari stayed close. Beside him, her small hand still gripped tight in his. "I said be seated, Captain." "I prefer to stand, sir." Admiral Choi finally looked up. His eyes moved from Hyun's scarred face to his prosthetic arm, then down to his artificial leg. The same uncomfortable expression appeared that Hyun had seen so many times before. Pity, mixed with distaste. "Very well." The Admiral touched his tablet screen. "Captain Lee Hyun, age 42, 12 years active service. Distinguished Flying Cross with Combat Cluster. Purple Heart with 3 additional citations. Medical discharge following injuries sustained during the Battle of New Seoul." The dry recitation of his service record sounded hollow in the formal chamber. Those medals represented friends who had died screaming in burning cockpits. The Purple Heart citations meant months of agony in military hospitals while doctors tried to save what remained of his body. "You have 1 dependent. Daughter Nari, age 8. No other family members listed." The Admiral's tone made it sound like Nari was another piece of unwanted baggage. Hyun felt his jaw tighten, but kept his expression neutral. "The Terran Defense Force is grateful for your service, Captain. We have an assignment that should suit your current capabilities." Around the room, the junior officers tried to hide their smiles. Hyun realized this had been planned as entertainment. The great war hero was about to be put in his place, and they all wanted to watch. Admiral Choi touched another control on his tablet. A holographic display appeared in the air between them, showing a battered space station floating in empty darkness. The structure looked like someone had welded random pieces of metal together without any plan or purpose. Outpost Kappa 7, the Admiral announced, located in the outer rim orbiting a dead planet in the Tau Ceti secondary system. The station requires an administrator to oversee basic maintenance and file monthly reports. The other officers in the room could barely contain their amusement. This was clearly the assignment nobody wanted, a garbage duty for a man who had once commanded squadrons in the most important battles of the war. The position includes family housing and full medical benefits, the Admiral continued. Given your physical limitations and family situation, we believe this represents an appropriate match for your current skill set. The insult was delivered with perfect bureaucratic politeness, but it hit like a physical blow. Hyun's current skill set, not his combat experience or tactical knowledge. His limitations. Behind the Admiral, one of the junior officers whispered something to his colleague. They both glanced at Nari and snickered quietly. The little girl noticed and moved even closer to her father. The previous station administrator filed his final report 6 months ago, Admiral Choi said. Since then, the facility has been largely unmanned except for routine supply drops. Your duties would be primarily custodial in nature. Custodial. The word hung in the air like a weapon. From squadron leader to janitor in 3 years. The career progression of a broken soldier who had outlived his usefulness. There is one other staff member currently assigned to the station, the Admiral added. Dr. Kim Woo, a xenoarchaeologist conducting a survey of potentially valuable technology. His work should not interfere with your administrative duties. Hyun studied the holographic image of the station. It looked abandoned and worthless. Exactly the kind of assignment the military gave to people they wanted to forget about. But something about the structure's design caught his attention. Parts of it looked human-built, but other sections seemed older and stranger. What is the strategic value of this installation? Hyun asked. The Admiral shrugged. Minimal to none. The system contains no valuable resources and sits far from any major trade routes. The station itself appears to be a collection of derelict modules that were connected over time by various occupants. Then why maintain it at all? Paperwork, Captain. The bureaucracy requires someone to file reports confirming that nothing of value exists there. Consider it a paid retirement position. The insult was now completely open. Around the room, the other officers made no effort to hide their entertainment. The famous Captain Lee Hyun reduced to filing useless reports about a worthless station in the middle of nowhere. Nari tugged gently on her father's hand. When he looked down at her, she whispered, "It looks interesting, Papa." Her words carried more weight than all the Admiral's mockery. Hyun straightened his shoulders and met the Admiral's gaze directly. "We accept the assignment." Admiral Choi blinked in surprise. He had expected argument, pleading, or at least some show of wounded pride. Simple acceptance caught him off guard. "Excellent," he said, recovering quickly. "Transport departs in 72 hours. You will find complete briefing materials in your quarters." The dismissal was clear. Hyun turned toward the door, Nari still holding his hand. As they walked away, he could hear renewed whispers and barely suppressed laughter behind them. In the corridor outside, other veterans stared as they passed. Word would spread quickly through the waiting area. The great war hero had been given garbage duty. Everyone would know within the hour. But Nari looked up at her father with bright eyes, full of curiosity rather than shame. "Do you think there might be aliens there, Papa?" Hyun smiled for the first time in weeks. "Maybe, little one. Maybe there will be." The transport ship Soul's Pride had been traveling through empty space for 3 weeks. Captain Lee Hyun stood at the observation window in the passenger compartment, watching the stars slowly shift positions as they moved deeper into the outer rim. Beside him, 8-year-old Nari pressed her nose against the thick glass, her breath making small fog patches that quickly disappeared. The ship was old and worn, used mainly for supply runs to forgotten outposts and abandoned mining stations. Most of the other passengers were traders looking for cheap salvage or scientists heading to research stations that nobody else wanted to visit. They kept to themselves and spoke in quiet voices about deals gone wrong and careers that had taken bad turns. Hyun had noticed how the other passengers looked at him and Nari. Some recognized his face from old war broadcasts and whispered to their companions. Others simply saw a man with obvious prosthetics traveling with a small child and assumed they were refugees or charity cases. Either way, people gave them plenty of space. The ship's captain was a weathered woman named Park, Sue, who had been running freight to the outer rim for 20 years. She treated Hyun with professional courtesy, but made it clear she thought he was making a mistake. Kappa 7 is a dead end, she had told him on the first day of the journey. Nothing out there but empty space and that weird old station. Most supply, runs get canceled because there's nobody left to deliver to. Nari spent her days exploring every part of the ship the crew would let her see. She was fascinated by the engine room and asked endless questions about how the faster-than-light drive worked. The engineers were amused by her curiosity and let her watch them perform routine maintenance. "Your daughter is bright," Chief Engineer Ko told Hyun. "She understands technical concepts that most adults struggle with." Hyun nodded with pride. Nari had always been quick to learn new things. Even as a toddler, she had been taking apart electronic toys to see how they worked inside. Her mother had encouraged this curiosity before the war took her away. As they traveled further from civilized space, the stars outside became stranger and more scattered. They passed through regions where no human ships regularly traveled. Ancient navigation beacons marked dangerous areas or warned of cosmic hazards that could destroy unwary vessels. On the 20th day, Captain Park called Hyun to the bridge. Through the main view screen, he could see their destination growing larger as they approached. Station Kappa 7 hung in the darkness like a metal sculpture created by someone with no understanding of normal design principles. The structure was enormous, much bigger than the holographic image had suggested back on Luna Station. It stretched for several kilometers in multiple directions, with corridors and modules connected in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Some sections were clearly human in design, with the standard geometric shapes and clean lines of Terran engineering, but other parts looked completely different. "What do you think built those older sections?" Captain Park asked, pointing to areas of the station that seemed to flow and curve in impossible ways. "I have no idea," Hyun admitted. "The briefing materials said it was just a collection of abandoned modules." "Abandoned by who?" Park wondered aloud. "Those sections don't look like anything I've ever seen before." As they drew closer, the ship's sensors began picking up energy readings from the station. Most of the structure appeared to be powered down, but certain areas showed signs of active life support and computer systems. Navigation lights blinked in regular patterns along the docking approaches, guiding them toward a reception bay. Nari stared at the station with wide eyes, pressing her hands against the view screen as if she could touch the strange metal surfaces. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Hyun looked at his daughter in surprise. Beautiful was not the word he would have chosen. The station looked alien and threatening, like something that had grown in the darkness rather than being built by intelligent hands. The docking procedure took almost an hour as the ship's computer tried to match with the station's ancient docking systems. Captain Park had to override several safety protocols just to complete the connection. "I'll be back in 6 months for the regular supply run," she told Hyun as they prepared to disembark. "If you change your mind about this assignment, I can take you back to civilized space." Hyun thanked her but said nothing about changing his mind. He had accepted this posting and would see it through, whatever waited for them inside the station. The docking bay was huge and mostly empty. Ancient metal walls stretched up into shadows that the overhead lights could not penetrate. The air smelled stale and recycled, with undertones of ozone and something else that Hyun could not identify. A young man waited for them near the airlock, holding a portable scanner and wearing the kind of environment suit that scientists used for exploring potentially dangerous areas. He had the eager expression of someone who had not been around other people for months. "Captain Lee, I'm Dr. Kim Woo, the xenoarchaeologist assigned to survey this facility." He pulled off his helmet and extended his hand. "I cannot tell you how glad I am to see other human faces." Kim was perhaps 28 years old, with the kind of enthusiasm that suggested he still believed his career might lead somewhere important. He helped them with their luggage while explaining the station's basic layout. "Most of the human sections are in good condition," he said as they walked through corridors that seemed to stretch forever in both directions. Life support works in about 60% of the facility. The artificial gravity is spotty in some areas, but livable overall. They passed through sections that looked like standard military installations, with recognizable equipment and normal proportions. But then they would turn a corner and find themselves in areas that seemed designed by completely different minds. Corridors that curved in ways that made no geometric sense. Rooms with ceilings that seemed both too high and too low at the same time. "What do you think built the older sections?" Hyun asked. Kim shrugged. "Previous survey teams have been studying that question for years. The materials are unknown alloys that our scanners cannot properly analyze. The construction techniques don't match anything in our databases. Whoever built them either had very different ideas about architecture or they were not humanoid at all." Nari walked between the two adults, turning her head constantly to stare at walls covered in patterns that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. Her small hands reached out occasionally to touch surfaces that felt warm despite the cool air of the corridor. "How long have you been here alone?" Hyun asked Kim. 2 months. The previous research team finished their survey and left just before I arrived. Their final report classified the station as architecturally interesting but strategically worthless. Kim's voice carried a note of frustration. "I think they missed something important, but I cannot figure out what." They reached the residential section, where Kim showed them to quarters that had been prepared for their arrival. The rooms were small but functional, with everything a family might need for an extended stay. Thick windows looked out into empty space where distant stars provided the only light. That evening, as they shared a meal in the station's small cafeteria, Kim explained his research in more detail. The human additions to this station were made over several hundred years by different groups, he said. Traders, explorers, refugees, even pirates at various times. They all added their own sections and connected them to what was already here. But nobody seems to have understood what they were connecting to. Nari had been quietly playing with a small electronic toy, but she looked up at Kim's words. "What, if the old parts were waiting?" she asked. The two adults stared at her. It was an odd thing for a child to say. "Waiting for what?" Kim asked gently. Nari thought for a moment, then shrugged. Maybe waiting for the right people to come. Later that night, as Hyun tucked his daughter into bed, she gazed out the window at the star-filled darkness. "I like it here, Papa," she said. "It feels like home." Hyun kissed her forehead and turned off the lights. As he walked back to his own quarters through the quiet corridors, he noticed something he had missed earlier. Some of the wall panels seemed to pulse with very faint light, like electronic circuits carrying minimal power. Deep in the station's core, systems that had been dormant for centuries began to stir. Energy patterns shifted through pathways that no human had ever mapped. And in the darkness between the stars, something ancient turned its attention toward the small family that had just arrived at Outpost Kappa 7. The station was no longer empty, and perhaps it had been waiting after all. 3 weeks had passed since Captain Lee Hyun and his daughter Nari arrived at Station Kappa 7. Hyun spent his days learning the administrative systems and filing the required reports about station maintenance and supply needs. The work was boring but straightforward. exactly what Admiral Choi had intended as punishment duty. Dr. Kim Woo continued his archaeological surveys of the older sections, documenting strange materials and impossible architectural features that defied explanation. His enthusiasm remained high despite the lack of major discoveries. He filled notebook after notebook with sketches and measurements, convinced that he was missing something important. Nari had adjusted to life on the station, better than anyone expected. She explored every area that was safe for children, turning their new home into her personal playground. The corridors that seemed alien and threatening to adults felt natural and welcoming to her. She had even given names to different sections of the station, calling the main human area the regular place and the older sections the flowing rooms. On a Tuesday morning, while Hyun worked on supply reports and Kim studied wall patterns in the archaeological section, Nari made a discovery that changed everything. She had been playing in what appeared to be an abandoned cargo bay in one of the older sections. The room was large and empty, with walls that curved in gentle spirals toward a ceiling that seemed to shift height, depending on where you stood. Nari liked to run in circles around the room, pretending she was a spaceship pilot flying through asteroid fields. During her game, she noticed that certain panels on the walls seemed to glow slightly when she came near them. The light was so faint that she had to look carefully to see it. When she touched one of the panels with her small hand, it pulsed brighter for just a moment. Curious, Nari pressed her palm flat against the panel and held it there. The surface felt warm and smooth, like polished stone that had been sitting in sunlight. Suddenly, the panel began to glow with soft blue light that spread outward in patterns like electronic circuits. Other panels around the room responded to the first one, creating a network of glowing lines that ran along the walls and across the ceiling. The lights pulsed gently like a heartbeat made of energy. Nari stepped back in wonder, watching the beautiful display that her touch had somehow activated. She ran to find her father, her feet echoing through the corridors as she hurried back to the administrative section. Hyun was sitting at his desk, reviewing maintenance schedules for the station's life support systems. "Papa! Papa, you have to come see!" Nari burst into his office, breathing hard from running. "I made the walls light up!" Hyun looked at his daughter with concern. The station's older sections had unpredictable electrical systems, and he worried that she might have triggered something dangerous. "Show me," he said, standing up from his desk. They walked quickly back to the cargo bay with Nari chattering excitedly about the pretty lights she had discovered. When they arrived, the room appeared normal and dark, but when Nari placed her hand on the same panel again, the entire light display activated just as before. Hyun stared in amazement as patterns of blue energy flowed across surfaces that had seemed completely dead for centuries. He tried touching other panels himself, but nothing happened. The lights only responded to his daughter. "Kim needs to see this," Hyun said quietly. Dr. Kim Woo arrived within minutes, carrying his scanner and a portable computer for recording data. When he saw the light display that Nari could activate, his excitement was almost overwhelming. "This is incredible," he said, taking readings with his instruments. "The energy patterns are completely unlike anything in our databases. It's as if the station is responding specifically to her biometric signature." They spent the next several hours experimenting carefully. The panels only activated when Nari touched them, and only when she used her bare hands. Gloves or indirect. Contact produced no response. Even more surprising, adult humans seemed to be completely ignored by whatever system controlled the lights. "It's reading something about her that it cannot read about us," Kim explained to Hyun. "Age, maybe, or some other biological factor that changes as humans mature." Over the following days, Nari's discovery led to more revelations. With her ability to activate the responsive panels, they gained access to sections of the station that had been sealed for unknown periods of time. Corridors opened that led deeper into the alien architecture. Rooms revealed themselves that contained technology beyond human understanding. The station was not a random collection of connected modules as previous surveys had concluded. It was a carefully designed facility with the human additions grafted onto something much more sophisticated and purposeful. The alien sections formed a complete structure that had been waiting for the right kind of activation. Kim worked frantically to document everything they discovered. His reports back to the Archaeological Service grew longer and more excited each day. The station contained manufacturing equipment that could build materials unknown to human science. Communication arrays that seemed designed to reach across impossible distances, even what appeared to be weapons systems, though their operation remained a mystery. "This is the find of the century," Kim told Hyun as they stood in a chamber filled with floating displays that showed star charts of the entire galaxy. "Whoever built this place had technology that makes our most advanced systems look like stone tools. But the more they explored, the more questions arose. Why would such advanced technology respond only to children? What had the original builders intended this place to be? And why had it been left apparently abandoned for so long? The answers came from an unexpected source. Deep in the station's core, in a chamber that only opened when Nari approached, they found something that changed their understanding of everything. Holographic figures appeared in the air above crystalline platforms. The beings looked humanoid but taller and more slender than humans, with features that seemed both familiar and alien. Their images flickered and wavered, like recordings made with technology that did not quite match the playback systems. One of the figures stepped forward and spoke. Its voice came from everywhere and nowhere, speaking in a language that none of them recognized, but somehow the meaning was clear in their minds. "Greetings to the new candidates," the figure said. "You have activated the evaluation protocols of this repository. We are the builders, and we welcome you to the testing." Hyun felt his military instincts sharpen. Testing implied judgment, and judgment often led to consequences. He moved protectively, closer to Nari while keeping his expression neutral. The holographic builder continued speaking. "This facility is one of many scattered throughout the galaxy. Each serves as a repository of knowledge and technology for species that prove worthy of advancement. Your young one has the gift of activation, and your family unit shows the balance of experience and innocence that we seek." Dr. Kim was recording everything, his hands shaking with excitement as he operated his equipment. This was first contact with an alien civilization, even if the contact was with recordings rather than living beings. "The testing will evaluate your species' readiness to inherit the responsibilities that come with advanced technology," the builder explained. "Many races have attempted these trials. Some have succeeded and added their knowledge to our repositories. Others have failed and been denied access to our gifts." The hologram gestured to the walls around them, which now displayed images of countless different species. Some looked similar to humans, while others were completely alien in form. All appeared to be using technology similar to what they had discovered in the station. "The trials will require both wisdom and strength, both youth and experience. Your success will determine not only your own fate, but the future relationship between our legacy and your entire species." Nari stepped forward, showing no fear of the tall alien figure. "Will the testing hurt anyone?" she asked. The builder's expression seemed to soften, though it was hard to tell with their alien features. "The testing reveals truth, young one. Truth sometimes brings pain, but it also brings growth. We will not harm those who approach with honest hearts." Hyun felt a chill as he realized the magnitude of what they had stumbled into. This was not just an archaeological discovery or a career opportunity for Dr. Kim. This was a test that could determine humanity's place in the galaxy. The holographic builder began to fade as the recording reached its end. "Prepare yourselves," it said. "The Pai. Trials begin when you are ready to face them. Choose carefully. for the consequences will echo far beyond this place." The chamber fell silent as the last traces of the hologram disappeared. Hyun, Nari, and Kim stood in the darkness, each lost in their own thoughts about what they had just learned. Outside the station, space remained empty and peaceful. But deep within the ancient structure, systems that had waited for millennia began the slow process of activation. The testing was about to begin. The testing began 3 days after their encounter with the Builder hologram. Captain Lee Hyun woke to find that the station had changed during the night. Corridors that had been dark were now filled with soft light. Rooms that had been sealed were standing open. And throughout the ancient sections, displays showed symbols and images that seemed to shift and move when viewed directly. Nari was already awake when Hyun checked her quarters. She sat by her window, watching patterns of light flow across the station's exterior hull like slow lightning. Her expression was calm and curious rather than frightened. "The Builder lady visited me in my dreams," she told her father. "She said the tests would be like games, but important games where we have to choose the right answers." Dr. Kim Woo arrived at their quarters with his arms full of recording equipment and data tablets. His excitement was barely controlled as he tried to document everything that was happening around them. "The energy readings are off the charts," he said, showing them displays covered with scrolling numbers and waveform patterns. "The entire station is active now. Systems that have been dormant for centuries are coming online all at once." They made their way to the central chamber where they had first encountered the Builder recording. The space had transformed completely. What had been empty air now contained floating platforms of crystal and metal. Holographic displays surrounded them on all sides, showing images of stars, planets, and civilizations from across the galaxy. Tugger. Builder appeared again, but this time the image was clearer and more solid. It looked directly at each of them as if seeing them for the first time. "The evaluation has begun," it announced. "You will face a series of challenges designed to test the qualities your species will need to use our technology responsibly. Each test will require different strengths. Success comes not from perfection, but from wisdom in your choices." The first challenge materialized around them like a holographic movie that they could step into and experience. They found themselves standing on the bridge of a starship under attack. Warning lights flashed red while the sound of weapons fire echoed through the air. Through the view screen, they could see enemy ships closing in while civilian transports tried to escape. "Commander," a holographic officer reported to Hyun, "we can save the civilian ships or destroy the enemy base, but we do not have time or firepower to do both. What are your orders?" Hyun felt his old military training take over. This was the kind of impossible choice that real commanders faced in actual combat. Save lives in the immediate moment or eliminate a threat that could kill many more people later. But as he studied the tactical display, Nari tugged on his sleeve. "Papa, look at the civilian ships more carefully," she whispered. Hyun examined the display again and noticed something he had missed. The civilian vessels were not just random refugees. They carried the symbols of hospitals, schools, and research facilities. These were not just any civilians, but the people who would be needed to rebuild society after the war. "Can we disable the enemy ships instead of destroying them?" Hyun asked the holographic officer. "Possible, but risky. We would need precise targeting that might fail under combat conditions." Hyun made his choice. "Target their engines and weapon systems. Disable, but do not destroy. Once the civilians are safe, we can capture the enemy ships and learn why they attacked." The simulation played out according to his decision. The precision strikes succeeded, saving both the civilians and capturing valuable intelligence from the enemy forces. The Builder's voice echoed through the chamber. "Wisdom in victory. The first trial is complete. The second test was different. It placed them in a laboratory where scientists had discovered a cure for a disease that killed millions of people every year. But the cure required a rare element that could only be obtained by destroying the ecosystem of an entire planet inhabited by non-intelligent but beautiful creatures. This time, Nari took the lead. She studied the holographic displays showing both the suffering caused by the disease and the innocent creatures that would die for the cure. "There has to be another way," she said firmly. "Smart people should be able to find a cure that does not hurt anyone." Dr. Kim joined the discussion, his scientific knowledge helping them explore alternatives. Together, they discovered that the rare element could be synthesized artificially, though it would take longer and cost much more than simply taking it from the planet. "Choose the harder path that preserves life," Nari decided. "Being smart means finding ways to help people without hurting others." The builder nodded approvingly. "Compassion, guided by intelligence. The second trial is complete. More tests followed over the next several hours. Some required Hyun's military experience to solve problems of strategy and leadership. Others needed Nari's fresh perspective to see solutions that adults might miss. Dr. Kim's scientific knowledge proved valuable in understanding technical challenges that had no obvious answers. They faced moral dilemmas about sharing technology with less advanced civilizations. They dealt with scenarios where peaceful solutions conflicted with practical necessities. They were tested on their ability to work together, to admit when they were wrong, and to change their minds when presented with new information. The most difficult test came near the end. The builder showed them a vision of Earth's future if humanity gained access to the repository's technology. In one timeline, humans used the advanced knowledge to eliminate poverty, disease, and war. They became peaceful explorers who shared their discoveries with other species throughout the galaxy. But in another timeline, the same technology led to new forms of conflict and destruction. Humans used builder weapons to conquer other worlds. They hoarded the knowledge for themselves and became exactly the kind of aggressive species that the builders had created the tests to identify and exclude. "Both futures are possible," the builder explained. "The choice will be made not just by you, but by your entire species over generations to come. How do you ensure that your people will choose wisely?" This was the hardest question yet. Hyun thought about all the good people he had known during the war, and all the terrible things that good people could do when they were afraid or desperate. Nari considered her dreams of exploring the stars and meeting alien civilizations, but also her memories of losing her mother to human violence. Dr. Kim spoke first. "We cannot guarantee how others will choose," he said, "but we can make sure they have good examples to follow and wise teachers to guide them." Nari nodded agreement. The builder lady said truth brings growth. Maybe if we always tell the truth about what we learn, other people will make better choices. Hyun added his own perspective. "In the military, we had a saying, train as you fight as you train. If we use this technology to help and protect rather than to conquer and control, maybe that will become the habit that guides future generations." The builder listened to their answers and seemed to consider carefully before responding. "You understand that wisdom must be taught and practiced, not simply imposed. You recognize that good choices come from good examples, and you accept responsibility for consequences that extend far beyond your own lives." The holographic figure gestured to the walls around them, which now displayed images of the galaxy showing hundreds of civilizations that had passed similar tests. "The trials are complete," the builder announced. "Your species shows promise, but potential alone is not enough. You must now choose what role you will play in the greater community of intelligent life." 3 options appeared before them as glowing pathways leading in different directions. The first path led to immediate access to all builder technology. Humanity would gain incredible power overnight, but would also face the immediate risk of misusing that power. The second path offered gradual introduction of selected technologies, with each new advancement requiring additional tests and demonstrations of wisdom. This was slower but safer for everyone involved. The third path meant walking away from the builder legacy entirely. Humanity would continue developing on its own, without outside help or interference. Choose carefully, the builder said. This decision will affect not only your people but every other species that encounters them in the centuries to come. Hyun looked at his daughter and Dr. Kim. The weight of representing their entire species felt almost unbearable. But as he met their eyes, he realized they had already found their answer during the tests themselves. They had succeeded not through individual brilliance, but by working together and considering consequences beyond their immediate needs. The same approach that had passed the trials would guide their choice now. Together, they stepped toward the second path. Gradual growth, earned advancement, and wisdom gained through experience rather than handed down from above. The builder smiled, an expression that looked strange on its alien features, but somehow conveyed approval and hope. The testing is complete, it said. Welcome to the galactic community, candidates of humanity. Your real education begins now. The energy readings from Station Kappa 7 had been detected across half the galaxy. Within days of the testing's completion, ships began arriving in the empty system where the ancient repository waited. Captain Lee Hyun watched through the station's observation windows as vessel after vessel dropped out of faster-than-light travel and took positions around their home. The first to arrive was a Terran Defense Force battle group led by Admiral Choi Min-ho himself. The same man who had mocked Hyun and given him this assignment now commanded 6 heavy cruisers and 2 assault carriers. His flagship took position directly in front of the station's main docking port, making his intentions clear. But Admiral Choi was not alone. Alien ships that Hyun did not recognize hung in space nearby. Some were sleek and beautiful, made of materials that seemed to bend light around their hulls. Others looked like floating cities built from scavenged metal and random technology. A few appeared to be living organisms rather than constructed vessels, pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. Dr. Kim Woo worked frantically at his monitoring equipment, trying to identify all the different species that had suddenly taken interest. In their discovery, I count at least 12 different ship designs, he reported to Hyun. Some match known alien civilizations, but others are completely new to our databases. Word about this place has spread faster than we thought possible. 8-year-old Nari pressed her face against the thick window, staring in wonder at the collection of spacecraft surrounding the station. To her, they looked like a gathering of friends coming to visit, though the adults understood the situation was far more dangerous. The builder hologram appeared in the station's central chamber, its image flickering with what might have been concern. This convergence was anticipated, it told them. When a repository becomes active, many species take notice. Some come seeking knowledge, others come seeking power, and a few come seeking to prevent others from gaining either. Communications requests flooded the station's systems. Admiral Choi demanded immediate surrender of the facility to Terran military authority. Alien commanders made offers to purchase access to builder technology. Others threatened destruction if their own species were not granted exclusive rights to the discovery. The most surprising message came from a ship that looked like a massive crystal floating in space. The beings inside called themselves the Keepers, and they claimed to be direct descendants of the builders themselves. Your species is not ready for this responsibility, their message stated. Surrender the repository to us, and we will ensure the technology is used wisely. Refuse, and we will take it by force to prevent galactic catastrophe. Hyun felt the familiar weight of command settling on his shoulders. He had faced impossible odds before during the war, but never with his daughters. Life hanging in the balance. The station was surrounded by forces that could destroy it in minutes, yet the builder technology offered defenses that might protect them. What are our options? He asked the builder hologram. The repository's defensive systems can be activated, the alien construct replied. They will create a barrier that no known weapon can penetrate. However, once activated, the barrier cannot be lowered until the current crisis is resolved through negotiation or conflict. Dr. Kim looked up from his communication console. Captain, I'm receiving more threatening messages every hour. Some of these species have been fighting wars with each other for centuries. If we give the technology to any one group, it could upset the balance of power across the entire galaxy. Nari had been quietly listening to the adult conversation, but now she spoke up with the direct honesty that only children could manage. "Why does everyone want to take things that do not belong to them?" she asked. The builder lady said this. Place was for people who passed the tests. Nobody else even tried to take the tests. Her simple observation cut to the heart of the problem. The technology belonged to whoever could prove worthy of it, not whoever had the biggest weapons or the loudest demands. Admiral Choi's patience ran out first. His flagship moved closer to the station while broadcasting on all frequencies. "Captain Lee, you are ordered to surrender control of this facility immediately. You are a single disabled veteran with no authority to negotiate on behalf of humanity. Stand down and allow proper authorities to handle this situation." The insult was delivered with military precision, designed to undermine Hyun's confidence while asserting the Admiral's superior position. But it had the opposite effect. Hyun remembered how these same authorities had treated him and his daughter just weeks earlier, dismissing them as damaged goods worthy only of garbage duty. "Negative, Admiral," Hyun responded calmly. "This facility operates under builder protocols, not Terran military authority. If you wish access to the technology, you are welcome to take the qualification tests." The silence that followed his response was broken by what sounded like laughter from several of the alien ships. Apparently, offering the Admiral a test was considered amusing by species that understood how the repository system worked. Admiral Choi's next transmission carried barely controlled rage. "You have 30 minutes to reconsider, Captain. After that, we will dock by force and remove you from command." Other ships began broadcasting their own ultimatums. The crystal vessel carrying the Keepers moved into attack position. Several alien fleets formed up for what looked like preparation for battle. The space around Station Kappa 7 became a powder keg waiting for a spark. "Activate the defenses," Hyun told the builder hologram. The station responded immediately. Energy barriers sprang to life around the entire structure, creating a shimmering dome that deflected every sensor beam directed at it. When Admiral Choi's ships tried to approach the docking ports, they bounced off the barrier like insects hitting a window. The defensive field was more than just a simple shield. It actively prevented any hostile action within its area of effect. Ships could not fire weapons, launch missiles, or even raise their own defensive systems while inside the barrier's influence. The technology forced a kind of peace on everyone within range. "This is impossible!" Admiral Choi's voice crackled over the communications system. "No known technology can create this kind of field effect." The builder hologram appeared on every ship simultaneously, its image broadcasting across all communication channels, whether the receivers wanted it or not. "Attention all vessels," it announced. "This repository operates under protocols established by the Builder Collective over 1 million years ago. Access to our technology is granted only to species that demonstrate wisdom, compassion, and the ability to consider consequences beyond their immediate desires." The alien construct gestured toward the station where Hyun, Nari, and Dr. Kim waited. "The humans present have successfully completed the qualification trials. They have earned the right to serve as this repository's guardians and to guide their species' introduction to galactic civilization. Any attempt to bypass these protocols through force will result in the immediate deactivation of this facility." Several alien ships began arguing among themselves over open channels. The Keepers demanded recognition of their authority as builder descendants. Other species claimed prior rights based on ancient treaties or military conquest. Admiral Choi insisted that human military chain of command took precedence over alien protocols, but the builder's next words silenced all arguments. "The barrier will remain in place until this dispute is resolved peacefully. All species present are invited to take the qualification trials if they believe themselves worthy. Those who refuse testing but continue making demands will be classified as unworthy of builder technology and permanently excluded from all repositories. The threat was clear and backed by technology that made resistance impossible. Ships that had arrived expecting easy conquest now found themselves trapped in a standoff where the only option was negotiation. Hyun watched the chaos outside and felt a grim satisfaction. The same authorities who had dismissed him as worthless now needed his cooperation to access the greatest discovery in human history. The irony was not lost on him, but satisfaction was tempered by concern for what came next. The barrier protected them for now, but it also trapped them with hostile forces that would not forgive this humiliation. Eventually, the standoff would have to end, and when it did, there would be consequences. Nari seemed to sense her father's worry. She took his hand and squeezed gently. "The builder lady will help us figure out the right thing to do," she said, with the confidence that only children could maintain in the face of impossible odds. Outside the barrier, dozens of ships waited, in tense formation, while their commanders tried to decide whether pride or wisdom would guide their next actions. The siege of Station Kappa 7 had begun, and the fate of galactic civilization hung in the balance. The standoff around Station Kappa 7 lasted for 6 tense days. Ships from dozens of species hung in space around the builder repository, their commanders struggling with a choice between pride and wisdom. The energy barrier that protected the station also prevented any aggressive action, creating an enforced peace that frustrated military leaders accustomed to solving problems with superior firepower. Captain Lee Hyun spent those days consulting with the builder hologram and preparing for what would come next. The ancient construct had made the situation clear. The repository would remain sealed until the crisis was resolved through peaceful means. Violence would result in the immediate and permanent shutdown of the facility. Dr. Kim Woo documented everything, knowing that his records would become some of the most important historical documents in human civilization. 8-year-old Nari continued to explore the station's deeper sections, her unique ability to interface with builder technology revealing new wonders every day. On the 7th day, the first ship broke the deadlock. A vessel from the Keepers, the crystal-like beings who claimed descent from the builders themselves, approached the station's communication range. Their leader, an entity that called itself the First Resonance, requested permission to speak directly with the repository's guardians. "We have considered your words," the First Resonance told them through the holographic communication system. "Our pride led us to claim authority we have not earned. If the trials are truly open to all species, then we request the opportunity to prove our worthiness." The builder hologram seemed pleased by this development. "The descendants of our people are welcome to demonstrate their growth since the time of transcendence. The trials await your participation." What followed was unlike anything the watching fleets had expected. The Keeper's ship docked with the station, and their representatives entered the testing chambers alongside Hyun, Nari, and Dr. Kim. The trials they faced were different from the human tests, adapted to challenge beings whose consciousness existed, partially outside normal space-time. The Keepers struggled with questions about responsibility and humility. Their advanced technology and long lives had made them arrogant, assuming they deserved authority simply because of their heritage. But the builder trials demanded proof of wisdom, not just power or ancestry. After 12 hours of testing, the First Resonance emerged from the chambers visibly changed. The being's crystalline form pulsed with patterns of light that Dr. Kim recognized as expressions of deep emotion. "We have learned much about ourselves," the First Resonance announced to the waiting fleets. "The trials revealed truths we had forgotten in our certainty of our own superiority. We withdraw our claim to this repository and acknowledge the humans' right to serve as its guardians." The Keeper's withdrawal from the confrontation sent shockwaves through the assembled fleets. If beings who claimed direct builder heritage could not simply take control of the repository, what hope did others have? Admiral Choi's response was predictably aggressive. "This is a human discovery on a human-administered station," he broadcast, to all ships. "We will not be bound by alien protocols or submit to alien testing." But his words rang hollow when several other human ships in his own fleet requested permission to take the trials. Word had spread through the Terran fleet about what the tests actually involved, and many officers found themselves curious about the builder evaluation process. Commander Park Gina, Hyun's former squadron mate who now served aboard Admiral Choi's flagship, was among the first to volunteer. Her arrival at the station created an emotional reunion with Hyun, who had not seen her since the end of the war. "You look well, old friend," she told him as they embraced. "Command suits you better than they expected." Park Gina's trials took a different form than the ones Hyun and Nari had faced. As a serving military officer, she was tested on her ability to balance duty with morality, to question orders that might cause unnecessary harm, and to understand the difference between strength and cruelty. She passed the trials, but barely. The builder construct noted that her military conditioning had made her too willing to accept harmful orders without question. However, her genuine desire to protect others and her willingness to learn from mistakes earned her a conditional approval. "You may return when you have gained more experience with independent moral reasoning," the builder told her. "The repository will remember your progress and continue your evaluation when you are ready." More officers followed, from both human and alien fleets. Some passed, others failed, and a few withdrew partway through when they realized the trials would force them to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves and their civilizations. The testing process became a kind of informal diplomacy. Species that had been enemies for centuries found themselves working together to understand builder philosophy. Military commanders discovered that their tactical skills meant nothing without wisdom to guide their use. Admiral Choi finally submitted to the trials on the 10th day, driven by political pressure from Earth and the obvious success of other participants. His testing was a disaster from the beginning. The builder construct presented him with scenarios where military force was not the answer, where negotiation and compromise were required. Admiral Choi failed repeatedly, defaulting to threats and shows of power even when such responses clearly made situations worse. "You seek control without understanding responsibility," the builder told him after his final failure. "You demand authority without accepting the burden of wise leadership. The repository will not grant technology to those who would use it primarily for domination." The Admiral's public failure marked a turning point. Earth's government, watching the proceedings through live feeds, realized that their military approach to the discovery was counterproductive. They began sending diplomats and scientists instead of warships. Over the following weeks, a new kind of civilization began forming around Station Kappa 7. The repository became a neutral meeting ground where different species could interact peacefully, bound by builder protocols that prevented aggression. Hyun found himself serving as an unofficial ambassador between humanity and the growing galactic community. His military experience and success in the trials gave him credibility with both human and alien leaders. More importantly, his partnership with Nari demonstrated the kind of intergenerational cooperation that the builders valued. Dr. Kim established the station's first research institute, welcoming scientists from dozens of species to study builder technology and philosophy together. The sharing of knowledge accelerated discoveries that would have taken centuries for any single civilization to achieve alone. Nari became something unprecedented, a child diplomat whose unique abilities and honest perspective helped resolve conflicts that baffled adults. Her natural curiosity and lack of prejudice made her an ideal bridge between species that had difficulty understanding each other. The builder hologram observed these developments with obvious satisfaction. "This is what we hope to achieve," it told Hyun during one of their regular conversations. "Not the dominance of any single species, but the growth of wisdom through cooperation and mutual respect." 6 months after their arrival at the station, Hyun received an unexpected visitor. Captain Park Soo, the trader who had brought them to Kappa 7, arrived with a transport full of supplies and a message from Earth. "The Terran Council has officially recognized you as humanity's first galactic ambassador," she told him. "They are offering you a full diplomatic staff, a permanent position on Earth, and basically anything you want if you will represent human interests in whatever this place is becoming." Hyun considered the offer while watching Nari play with alien children whose parents had come to take the trials. The station had become a kind of school where species learned to work together, exactly what the builders had intended. "I think we are already where we need to be," he told Park Soo. "This is our home now, and this work is more important than any position on Earth." The transport captain smiled and nodded. "I thought you might say that. But I had to ask. Oh, and Admiral Choi sends his regards. He has been reassigned to supply depot management on a mining station. Apparently, his handling of this situation did not impress his superiors." As Park Soo departed, Hyun reflected on how much had changed since their arrival. The worthless assignment that was meant to be punishment had become the most important posting in human space. The disabled veteran and his little girl, mocked and dismissed by military bureaucrats, now served as guardians of technology that could reshape galactic civilization. But the greatest change was in himself. For the first time since the war, Hyun felt truly useful again. Not as a weapon or a warrior, but as a teacher and guardian of something larger than any single battle or conflict. The station continued to grow as more species arrived to attempt the trials. New sections were built to accommodate different environmental needs and cultural requirements. The repository became a small city where dozens of civilizations lived and worked together in peaceful cooperation.